Good morning, everybody. Thank y'all for joining me on this Nirvanic journey today, where we try to get our health aligned for our enlightenment so we can take that level of positivity up to the next level goal, okay? So trying to reach that 5D, right? All right, so today I'm going to talk to y'all about something that has interested me since the 90s, when I was born, by the way. So I know I started studying it when I was an infant. No, no, I'm just kidding. But anyway, so something that's interested me for years and years and years, and that's about how the foods we eat affect our mental abilities, and they affect our capacity to remember things and to think clearly, okay? So let's dive right into this so that we can cut all the mental fog and be able to use all of our brain, okay? All right, here we go. The book that I'd like to mention to y'all that some of y'all may have already read or are familiar with is The Grain Brain, okay? And if you've read that, it means you're on the same track as me, and I'm just going to take you a little bit further. They do talk about mental health in there too as well, but the article I'll be using today was found in, I'm in school full-time, as I've told y'all in the past, and I get to use the library, which has all the peer-reviewed articles and stuff like that. In the journals, I get to use that to write papers and stuff. So the article that I'm using today is from the peer-reviewed journal. So you may not be able to have access to it. I know there's Google Scholar. So if you, I'm going to give you the title of the article. You may be able to pull it up through Google Scholar, or you may have access to it through your job or your school or whatever. So hopefully, you or your kids, somebody can help you pull up this article and read the whole thing, because it is fascinating. But I'm going to try to touch on several of the main points. Okay, so the connection I'm going to show you today is let's start with the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is one of your 12 cranial nerves that's located in your brain. Some of the cranial nerves, basically their functions are for your motor functions, your autonomic functions, which is your breathing, your heart rate, stuff that you don't have to think about. You don't have to say, oh, let me remember to breathe, or, well, you do. You have to remember to breathe deeply, okay? So that's something none of us do very well. We have to really train ourselves to breathe properly. That's where meditation is so vital and awesome. But just for normal breathing that keeps you alive, and even shallow breathing that keeps you alive, heart rate, you don't have to think about your heart beating. Well, let me think. Okay, beat, 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 beat. I mean, that's autonomic, okay? That happens automatically. It's automatic. No, but anyway, so the vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve, and it goes all the way from your brain all the way down to your gut. Okay, so that's the one we're going to focus on today, because let's see, it starts in the medulla oblongata, which controls parts of the autonomic nervous system, such as respiration, digestion, heart rate, and more, and extends all the way down to the transverse colon for digestion, to aid in digestion, okay? You might remember in the last video I talked about melatonin, which is produced in the pineal gland as a precursor for the hypothalamus to produce hormones that aids our body's feedback loops, which keeps our bodies in homeostasis. So remember, I told you that when your blood sugar goes a little bit up, like let's say you eat a candy bar, you shouldn't be eating a candy bar, but if you eat, whatever you eat, carbs, okay, makes your sugar go up a little bit, where your negative feedback loop kicks in, produces insulin, and brings it back down again, okay? And your body's always doing this, always trying to balance itself out. Well, the same things happens in your gut. So there is actually the vagus nerve stimulation therapy. I saw this on the article, or on another webpage, which I put a link to that below. There's vagus nerve stimulation therapy, if anybody wants to look into that. They can treat the side effects of diseases such as epilepsy, or even treat epilepsy, it says, depression, and anxiety. And basically, I was so excited by the time I got to this point in the article, and where I was reading, I was researching a bunch of stuff online, and I was just like, God, I love the human body. It's so fascinating. But basically, I wrote a little comment that said, Einstein and Tesla were simply scratching the surface as compared to our body's amazing high-tech ability to balance, stay alive, and heal. Our bodies are amazing. They are made to heal. Okay, so we do mess things up. Our government possibly messes things up. Our water supply is just completely effed up, just full of all kinds of stuff that we do not, that causes hormone imbalance and hormone issues and stuff like that. So, where our body runs on hormones and the production thereof. So, All right, so the vagus nerve aids in communication from gut to brain. 80% of the communication from the gut is from the gut telling the brain the conditions down there. And 20% of that is the brain's response back to the gut to tell it what to do because of the information it received, okay? So the gut reports things like neurotransmitter production, such as serotonin and GABA levels. So we know serotonin production in the brain helps to regulate your mood, behavior, sleep, memory, sexual desire, and function, sexual function. And low levels are linked to depression and things like that. But the gut serotonin is found in the mucosal lining, and it actually stimulates the production of gut mucus, which keeps our stomach lining nice. And, you know, when I used to work in pediatrics, I just actually quit in February, but when I used to work in peds, a lot of the kids would come in with stomach problems, and I would recommend probiotics to them. I was like, oh, you know, you really need to be on a good probiotic because, you know, you need to keep that, make sure your stomach lining is not, you know, getting, okay, so if your mucosal lining breaks, I wish I had written a picture of this, dang it. I wish I could post a picture in the description box, but you can't. But anyways, so when you sever that mucosal lining, then you go to your actual endothelial cells and all that kind of stuff, and you start breaking through that. You know, then the acid, the hydrochloric acid that's supposed to stay in your stomach inside the mucus is what can withstand the hydrochloric acid. Once it breaks through, you know, then you can develop gastric lining tears and things like that, and that's where, you know, ulcers and, you know, through life, you know, if you're having constant leakage problems and stuff like that, you can have leaky bowel syndrome, which can cause all kinds of problems and even eventually cancer. So I keep getting text messages even though I'm on airplane mode. That's weird. I don't understand. I don't know how phones work. I don't understand all that stuff. But anyway, I keep getting messages. I'm like, eh. But anyway, so, all right, in the gut, serotonin is found in the mucosal lining, and from there is released into the blood or the lumen. Your lumen is like your piping of your intestines, okay? It's the inside of the line of it's your intestinal walls and stuff like that. That's your lumen of the gut. It appears to function to stimulate the production and the discharge of colonic mucus. That's serotonin, okay? If your body comes into contact with like cholera or an amoeba, you know, you go to another country, you drink the water, well, what happens? Okay, you have cholera in your stomach, and your serotonin says, oh no, the mucosal lining has been damaged. And, you know, it says, danger, Will Robinson. And it sends a message. Anyway, the vagus nerve sends that message up to your brain, and your brain, that 20% goes back down and says, oh no, you know, produce more mucus. And start the inflammation reaction, which can be vomiting. It can be diarrhea. You know, when you have malaria and stuff like that, what do? You vomit and diarrhea, everything, and they're afraid of dehydration and things like that. So that is your brain telling your stomach to vomit, your brain telling your stomach to produce more mucus, to have diarrhea, to develop fever, the inflammation response happens, and all this kind of stuff. So isn't that exciting? Love our bodies. Okay, so anyway, okay, so also there's, besides serotonin, there's the GABA in your body, which is amazing, plays a vital role in the gut as well. But I don't know why I put that on there. I digress. Okay, so, all right, the gut also reports on the intestinal barrier chemicals and tight junctions that keep our gut bacteria and lining where they need to be to prevent pathologies such as stomach ulcers, bacterial and fluid leakage into the rest of our bodies. So the gut tells the brain about its health, and the brain tells the gut what to do. Like I just said, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. The vagus nerve is also responsible for telling the gut what to do if a tumor or inflammation issue arises in there. You know, then that would be more of the diarrhea and vomiting and things like that. So guys, we have 3+ pounds of bacteria in our gut that's always supposed to be present. Guess what happens if we take antibiotics? I'm not against antibiotics. There are some things where you really need them. But this is why they tell you to eat yogurt or Good Belly or something like that to put back in probiotics into your gut when you're taking antibiotics, because you're destroying your gut bacteria, all of it. Okay, antibiotics became really popular back in the 70s. Everybody was like, oh, it's an end all be all, you know, yay, we can be cured of everything. And really, there's only certain things that you really have to have an antibiotic for. Our bodies are made, the hydrochloric acid is made to kill things like that, the mucosal lining of our stomach, if everything's healthy, then that thing is going to get killed by the hydrochloric acid and it's going to be sent out through the feces or the urine. Okay, so our bodies are made to heal that kind of stuff. And our inflammation response, fever, stuff like that, God gave us that to kill things, because some things can't live in heat. Some things can't live without oxygen. There's you know, we were made to destroy this stuff. We have killer cells and we have lymphocytes and all these different things that were made for, you know, white blood cells and everything that elevate, you know, rises in our body. We can test that in the medical office to see if we have something going on. So we have, okay, this is an excerpt from the journal that I read called The Gut-Brain Axis, which I'm going to put a link to down below, but that's the one I found on my school, you know, website. All right, the human gut contains more than 1,000 bacterial species. Trillions of individual bacteria are in the gut, meaning the human body contains more bacteria in the gut than the cells of the entire body. That's how important it is, y'all. The gut microbiome weighs in at about 3 pounds. It contains 20 million bacterial genes. The human body only has approximately 2,000. And the gut contains far more neurotransmitter chemicals like the serotonin and the GABA than the brain itself. In fact, about 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut by enterochromaffin cells. The process is highly dependent on the presence of gut bacteria. The bacteria grow and produce metabolites within the gut to stimulate the enterochromaffin cells to produce serotonin. Okay, so, you know, I told you that there's a process that the body goes through. It's like a domino effect. So facts are that many health conditions affecting mental health are now leaked to the gut, because you know that it talks back and forth through that vagus nerve. Patients diagnosed with autism often, okay, and I think they say often because not everyone's tested. Patients that are diagnosed with autism have elevated intestinal permeability and mucosal lining issues. Okay, so I'm telling you right now, when your gut is not in good health, when you don't have that mucosal lining protecting us from, you know, things like that, and you have leaky gut syndrome, okay, things that leak out into parts of your body that's not supposed to be there. You know, you have bacteria, you know, potential, you know, viruses, fluids that are only supposed to, hydrochloric acid is not supposed to be outside of your, you know, your gut. I'm trying not to get too like technical or whatever, but this is all stuff that I learned like in nursing. But anyways, let's see, I am sure many of you will remember the huge influx of news that we had back in the 90s about, I know my time's getting away too, about the, and magazine articles that you read, emails that were circulating the web about how artificial dyes, food colorings, and like MSG and all that stuff was adversely affecting children and causing autism. Okay, they didn't know what the real cause was, but they knew that it was exacerbated by these things. A lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, and even people that didn't have autistic children, and rightfully so. I was one of those people, you know, to delete artificial colors, preservatives, MSG, all that fake BS food. Well, after studying this information further, it is true that these chemicals, MSG and such, are not good for anybody. But the real ish was not necessarily that children with autism spectrum disorder were more sensitive, but that their stomach was already messed up. Okay, they had pre-existing conditions, like potentially their mothers were on antibiotics when they were born, or I mean when they were pregnant with them, which went straight to the fetus, and some things go through the fetal barrier and they're able to get in through the placenta, and antibiotics are probably permeable. I didn't research that part of it, but they also show high levels of lipopolysaccharides in their blood, which emits from gram-negative bacteria once they die. So the bacteria is being destroyed, and then the lipopolysaccharides are released into the bloodstream. This can only happen if the lining of the stomach is breached, guys. Okay, if our stomach is whole and complete and the mucosal lining is intact and everything is where it's supposed to be, this is not going to show up in your, you know, blood flow that goes throughout your entire body. So that's also going to your brain. And remember I told you the pineal gland was not protected by the blood-brain barrier. Well, you've got all these dead bacteria floating around your body, and you've also got them coming up here and messing with your, you know, parts of your brain. You know, I don't know, the hypothalamus and pineal gland and all that stuff. Reversely, the stomach lining issue is only likely what caused the pathology and not the other way around. gut health, I think for most people, what we're looking as being weird, I think most people, what I was putting is that they were looked at as being weird if they chose not to use household chemicals, or we're not using bleach. Oh, really? So you're one of those people, you know, or not vaccinating or being off the grid. If they just want to break the mold and do things differently, they were looked at weird because they were kicking against the pricks, you know, kind of thing. Some of you may have seen the movie Food Inc. years ago. I think it's on Netflix right now if you want to check it out, about pesticides grown into our seed and food supply and things like that. I am going to go ahead and cut this part. I'm going to stop here, and we'll do a part 2 of this to discuss specific mental illnesses such as schizophrenia, depression, things like that can happen as a result of this. But I know you guys have heard all the, I hate to say, I don't know if Monsanto is going to get me cut off of here or not, but you can watch Food Inc. It'll explain it all in detail. The pesticides are grown into the seeds so that when the farmers plant the seeds, it's already in there, which sounds like a good idea, you know, and all this kind of stuff, but really that stuff is going into kids' minds, kids' brains, kids' guts, and stuff like that. It's also killing off our bee population, which we need for pollination, or pollination, I'm sorry, pollination. But anyway, so guys, I hope that you guys will join me tomorrow for part 2 of this, and thank you so much, guys. Have a blessed day, and namaste.